Odd Show. This is a new show in the Awesemo suite of content coming to you here on YouTube, which is growing by leaps and bounds. Shout out to everybody who is following along and who is enjoying this. So this should be a good one here. We've got some Saturday action, both for college football. We've got some NFL action, and then we do have a whole day of Sunday. So we're going to get in on this right now because I am joined by Ben Jazzraz Raza. You guys know him well from the A to B show, which will be on later today. And for those of you joining for the first time here, you may not know this, but Ben actually has a job outside of DFS, and it is wagering on sports, specifically college football and college basketball. Ben, little known fact about you, but now words getting out there. It's starting to grow.
I do prefer the college sports to bet, and it's a great time of the year. I mean, bowl season. You can look at it two ways. It's a little odd because you don't know where teams are at motivation wise, and it's weird matchups, but a lot of interesting spreads. Some that can be exploited, I think, and I'm excited to get into it for sure.
All right. Well, let's start working on that. Chat, if you guys are getting this, I'm getting a couple little red diodes here, but it says we are streaming, but it may not be of the best quality. So if anything is an issue with sound or with video, please do let us know. We're going to start off here with our first game here. This is the Las Vegas Bowl, because this makes sense to wager on this one. Arizona State from the Pac-12, Fresno State from, well, gosh, what used to be the Mountain
WAC, yeah.
Mountain West. Now I think it's the WAC. Fresno State University, the alma mater of my mother. She actually went to Fresno State University.
There we go.
Go Bulldogs. Go Bulldogs. Now, this is going to be an interesting one here because we've got, all through bowl season, we're going to see some people sitting out, Ben, which sitting out meaning that those guys that are getting ready to prepare for the NFL draft may not play in their bowl games. And then, of course, they're not going to play in the Senior Bowl or any of those other opportunities, which usually end up being secondary high-end plays that either didn't make the bowl game or are looking to improve their draft stock. But that's going to affect us right off the bat here. It's going to affect West Virginia. It's kind of like athletes are saying, hey, you know what? You got a couple years from me. Now I got to protect my future. So I don't have a problem with it. But for those of you just dipping in, there are, 37 major bowl games this season. So a lot of weird things can happen that you're not aware of. Suspensions, because hey, when you're in your late teens or early 20s and you are out and about with a bunch of your rowdy friends, stupid things can happen. That doesn't not limited to just football players, Ben. Not limited.
No, isn't that the truth? Yeah, I mean, this is the thing with bowl season. That's where there's, I guess you could say there's more variance in it, in the sense of there's some weird situations, but at the same time, some of these teams, you can kind of jump on the fact that they're going to be down some key pieces and it's going to change the dynamic. And we see that, as you alluded to, with this first game right here.
All right, now that we've got all that out, setting the stage, it's Arizona State. They are 4.5-point underdogs here to Fresno State. We have a 51.5 over under. Again, this one is nearly every bowl game is going to be a relatively neutral site, but some teams are closer to the venues than other. Fresno State actually does travel reasonably well with their fans, and hey, who doesn't want to go to Vegas? So I have a feeling it'll be a few more people there from that side than there will be from Arizona State. Plus, this is the first really good year Fresno State has had in several, particularly after winning the Mountain West and upsetting, of all teams, Ben, upsetting Boise State. Talk to me here. Let's break down with Mr. Harry, the wide receiver who will be out as he prepares for the NFL. Talk about what you're going to do about that, and obviously this is already factored into the line as well.
Yeah, so that line, it's moved a little. I've seen it climb as high as 6 in some places. So Fresno's taking on money. Part of it's definitely because, N'Keal Harry, who's an all short list of the first receivers who you're going to see off the board next year chose to not play in the bowl game, which, like you said, I get it. It's hard to, this is a somewhat meaningless game, and he's protecting millions of dollars in equity for himself. So that's going to pose a challenge. Arizona State, it's not that they're one-dimensional, but they know what they want to do. Manny Wilkins wants to get him the ball, Benjamin in the backfield. Those are the guys who are going to do the heavy lifting. And Fresno State it's a sound defense. You said, they beat Boise and that was one of their 2 losses this year. They play pretty vanilla, grind games out. I don't expect a shootout here by any stretch. But it's going to be tough. I think losing Harry on the outside for Arizona State, especially if they fall behind, is going to spell some trouble for them.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we have seen throughout the years, be it the Pac-12, now previously the Pac-10. The West Coast team's a little bit light on defense. Some of that's camouflaged by a lot of their high-flying offenses. So some of their defenses are still pretty good, but the offensive teams, it's just on steroids, and they were definitely ahead of the passing game. Of course, the West Coast offense kind of expanding, radiating out from Stanford and the San Francisco 49ers, when Bill Walsh was the coach at both of those institutions, and now it's what everybody's doing. All the kids are doing it here 25 years later. So just know that is steeped within the inherent leagues, both the Mountain West and the Pac-12. Any other little side notes that you want to mention from this game? Do you ever look at player props in the bowls, or does it just get too weird for those too detailed?
Yeah, it's tough. A lot of books don't have them, to be honest. As we get into bowl season, some of the more prevalent bowls, the New Year's Eve bowls, the playoffs, you may see some games like this. It's a little tricky. But no, I just kind of look at these teams. Arizona State has an unknown. And, if you can quantify that, that's going to be the key. The unknown is, how do they move the ball without N'Keal Harry? Obviously I don't know the answer to that. I think they're going to struggle. And Fresno State, Jeff Tedford, solid coach. They know what they're doing. Good QB. He doesn't make really mistakes. Not that he's super dynamic at the same time. He's just very solid. He does what he needs to do. They lean on the defense. They kind of play how they play. And I like that in a bowl game. They come in intact. There's no problems. And I think that spread, we'll see where it ends up by tomorrow. It's climbing already. I like it. I think Fresno State really causes Arizona State a lot of problems, especially with that defense.
All right. Well, the New Year's Day 6, even New Year's Eve, those are going to be the conferences and the schools that you're aware of. They have the largest undergrad bodies. That means they get the most eyeballs. As we ease into the first Saturday of bowl games, we're going to get some of those, not even secondary, Ben. I think these are more tertiary conferences. Not to besmirch them, but it is what it is. So the next game we're going to talk about, this is the Camila Bowl. This is in Montgomery, Alabama. We've got Eastern Michigan going against Georgia Southern. 47.5 over under. This one's going to be kind of interesting. Both these teams don't generally beat themselves. Eastern Michigan has had a tougher schedule, but they were obviously bowl eligible. They did get to 7 wins on the season. Georgia Southern played a slightly different, obviously skill level of schedule. They're in the Sun Belt. Eastern Michigan is in the Sun Belt. Eastern Michigan is over there in the MAC. These are more basketball leagues than they are, because you only put 5 guys on the floor at once for basketball, Ben. Football, a little tougher when you got to go 22 deep there without even specialist punters, etc. So it gets a little tougher for these guys to do there. But these teams relatively equally matched, because it's, wait for it, nearly a pick'em. The line has kind of bounced on both sides here as I'm looking at point one way or the other. Right now we are sitting with Georgia Southern as 1-point favorites. Georgia, Alabama, not that far away, but I don't know what kind of travel the alumni are going to have. but I suspect there will be a little bit better travel than those even trying to escape the winter in Michigan. I don't know that Montgomery, Alabama is going to be the resort destination that we would expect. So I'm kind of liking Georgia Southern here from a high level, just looking at this, because I like to play those bowl pick'ems where you pick all the teams, and I like to do it with confidence points here. So some of these early ones, a lot of times you'll want to look at and see who's traveling well, who's been hurt towards the end of the season, who's suspended, because there's not always a lot of news, even though these are bowl games, Ben. But you've dug deep into here, and you've got some ideas with what you want to look at here. Talk to us, walk us through this evenly matched game.
Yeah, this is an interesting game. You know, there's 5 games tomorrow. This is my favorite one. This line, another one, it's climbed. You know, opened around Pick'em. I saw 1, then I saw 1.5. Now I see some places up to 3. Georgia Southern's taking on money.
Which makes sense, because if you start to break it down just a little bit from the high level, like me, it's like, well, they're closer. It's sort of like when you look at the first round of the NCAA tournaments. Who's closer?
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of game where it's like, you know, these are 2 teams that would never play, and it's just an odd matchup to say the least. But the thing that stuck out to me most is Georgia Southern is one of a handful of teams that they're a triple option team. So ideally, they don't really throw. Maybe a handful of times a game. And if they're really moving the ball, they may not throw in the entire game. So it comes down to, you know, can Eastern Michigan stop it? Because it's somewhat the same play. There's just a lot of ifs. You know, you got the fullback dive. Does the quarterback keep it? Does he pitch it? Eastern Michigan hasn't faced a ton of that this year. They played Army, who's certainly does that, and they lost. So I think they could struggle. You know, the strength of their defense is in the secondary. That's going to be negated. It's more about what you can do up front. And Georgia Southern, like most of these option teams, you know, they run it every week. It's just very hard to get a read in practice. It's hard to simulate. Not that it's a super short turnaround, but at the same time, this isn't a bowl in 2 weeks. Like Eastern Michigan hasn't had a ton of time to prep for this. I think they struggle stopping it. And when you can't stop the option, it's a huge problem because, like I said, first of all, the drives take 6, 7, 8 minutes because it's all on the ground. And secondly, it's the same kind of play. So there's not much you can do. It's very difficult. If an option team kind of has an effective way to move the ball on you, that could be big problems.
And we see this a lot of times with teams playing the couple of the service academies that do run the option. There's a few holdouts throughout some of these mid-major conferences, and it's just as you said, these teams don't see it enough anymore, and it becomes an issue. You know, back when I was in high school many moons ago, we had Nebraska was one of the last holdouts. They ran the option well into the late 90s and even had tenets of it in their offense in the early 2000s. Oklahoma State also ran it quite a bit, but you don't see it anymore outside of these teams that generally have smaller players or less skilled athletes. It's because it's all about the discipline. Now we see the RPO, the run pass option, the run pass option. In my mind, I always think read pass option, but it's run pass option. We see it making its way into the pros now. This is entirely different. The guys that are running these systems aren't as fast. The quarterbacks aren't as talented and generally don't have the arm to really scare the defenses. So it all becomes about being deception. There's way more fullback dives and other situations. And if this is something that you don't have a good nose tackle, you don't have disciplined linebackers, and they start cheating to the outside, that's what keeps them honest, is that fullback dive. And it's not exciting, but 7 yards in a cloud of recycled tires from the field turf, it marches you down the field, Ben, and it can be very, very frustrating, and it can tire out a defense, particularly if they haven't seen it, because then you're running in your backups. Well, why are they backups? Because they're not as good as the starters, and they're going to have just as many problems. So the wrinkle that is, this used to be like when teams would face Houston University or some of those other ones that were really pass happy way early. They ran the air raid before it was called the air raid. And everybody's like, oh, what is this? It's not the T formation. It's not the single set I. And it freaked them out. So because they hadn't seen it. But now more people are doing that, so they haven't seen this. So anyway, that's just from a high level thing. Because we're going to want to watch some of these games, Ben. I mean, it's football. and we know football's going away soon. So every chance we get, tune it on. The wife's like, "Oh, honey, I'm just watching. It's a bowl game. It's important." Little does she know you're going to be talking about bowl games for the next 30 days. But
yeah, this is. I think you kind of touched on it. It's just it's an awkward matchup for Eastern Michigan. The key with all option teams, if Eastern Michigan can get out ahead and force Georgia Southern to throw the ball, forget it. They're going to have huge problems. But on the flip side, if Georgia Southern is able to, I'm just looking at their quarterback right now, and he's a solid player. I've seen him play a little. He's got 10 passing touchdowns, no picks. But you look at over a course of the season, he's throwing the ball 5, 6, 7 times a game. It's such an atypical thing. So that's what they want to do. If they fall behind, they're going to have to throw it like a normal team, and that's a recipe for disaster. It's going to be about controlling that clock.
All right, a UPS guy came, so my dog will calm down here in just a moment. So is that all the wisdom and nuggets you want to drop on us from the Camellia Bowl?
Yeah, like I said, I think that's a game. Out of the 5 tomorrow, that's my favorite game. I've seen Georgia Southern play. I like the way they play, and I think they get a good matchup against Eastern Michigan just from a personnel standpoint. The strength of that defense is not up front.
All right. Chat, I see a few of you in there. Shout-outs to Artie Gilmore, one of our stalwart guys. Weddle Boys is in there. He bounces in and out of the various shows. I do think that they both follow the A to B show, which will be on later this afternoon. There's some of your stalwart, faithful fans here. We're going to do one more game here from college, and then we'll talk a little bit about the NFL games. But this one is going to be the New Orleans Bowl. Hey, wait for it. It's in New Orleans.
Look at that.
Who would have thought? We have Middle Tennessee State and Appalachian State going in this one. Appalachian State was actually solid this year. They, weren't we on like the 20th anniversary of their Michigan upset? It's got to be around that phase. So they've been popping up here and there. It's kind of like the Richmond Spiders in the NCAA tournament. Every few years they arrive on the scene as they cycle through a round of 3- and 4-year starters. So they're 10-2. Pretty good record. They're going against Middle Tennessee State, who was just 8-5. Now, 13 games, that's a lot. You don't always see that. So generally when you see that, you get somebody that plays in their conference championship game, and then every few years you get you can pick up a special waiver, and that's where you see some of the teams going out to Hawaii. Or other games like that, or some of the preseason specials, because it's hard to get those people to play in the preseason special, meaning Labor Day or earlier, or get teams to schlep on out to Hawaii, because it's a lot of cost for the universities and etc. But when you see teams that have the extra games on top of the conference championships, that's usually what it is. It means these guys have been practicing for a long time, and that is something that you see in college. Particularly with some of these games that are closer to the end of the regular season, a lot of these guys are geared up. Some of these ones that aren't going to happen until New Year's Day, they may not have played in 5-6 weeks. They may not have played since Thanksgiving. So that can really muck with timing. Yes, everybody gets healthy, but they haven't, fired shots in anger, I guess is what one would say. They haven't had their blood boil with looking at their opponents, Ben. So we generally see a little bit crisper, at least in the first half, compared to some of these later games, just where people are off for a little bit of timing. So one other thing that you want to kind of keep in mind as we go through a 3-week bowl season here. So looking at Mid-Tennessee State, are they going to be? They're 7-point underdogs. Are they feeling a little verklempt because they lost their Conference USA Championship game? Ben, that was they were riding high, and now they're in the New Orleans Bowl in New Orleans. What? We're in a bowl that doesn't even have a name. How much does that suck? Let's go down to the French Quarter. Let's go to Bourbon Street. I have a feeling I know what the Mid-Tennessee State players are doing this weekend.
Yeah, this is a good one. So you got 2 teams, pretty good teams, honestly. App State's solid. But one of the things, we talked about it with Arizona State, N'Keal Harry sitting out. One other thing in bowl season that does happen is coaches leave. And that's a situation we have here. Appalachian State's coach is now the Louisville coach. He's left them. I don't want to say high and dry, but at the same time, he darted out, he's recruiting, and that's a huge problem. How they respond, I have no idea. But again, this is the variance and the unknown that we talk about in bowl season. So, someone else is going to be leading the helm for them. Everybody it's a domino effect. Everyone shifts up one, and we'll see how they respond. They're a good team. They're not a triple option team. They do have a mobile quarterback, though. He likes to run. They like to keep it on the ground. They can throw the ball a little. They had an all-world running back. He's been hurt for a while. He's not coming back. Jalen Moore. And on the other side, Middle Tennessee State, another team, and I kind of said this phrase a couple times already, they are what they are. Senior quarterback, it's the coach's son, Brett Stotskill. Just solid quarterback. He knows what he's doing. He's been through it. They want to throw the ball. They will throw the ball. How effective? That's what remains to be seen. But I'm leaning, give me the +7 Blue Raiders. They come in intact. They have a senior quarterback against a lot of unknown on the other side. I don't know exactly where App State's heads are at. They have a new person in charge. Coming off, they won their conference and they're a solid team, but I'll gladly take a touchdown in a game that I view as a toss-up.
All right, that'll hit it for our Saturday college football. We're going to talk a little bit about the two pro teams here, because Ben has one team near and dear to his heart and one team near and dear to his pocketbook, shall we say, or maybe perhaps not so near and dear. But a couple little items here. If you have not yet tried out Awesemo.com, you definitely need to do so. Free 7-day trial if you use the promo code AwesemoOdds. All one word. Go to the Awesemo.com homepage. Up in the upper right, you can click the Join tab. You go in there, select a package. You can even choose something with the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. And if you use the promo code AwesemoOdds, down at with the last field that you're filling out, it's labeled as I think it's promo code or coupon code. Put in AwesemoOdds, all one word, and you'll get 7 free days for a trial, and you can check us out because we have all of the major sports covered. We have the proprietary player ownership percentages for the sports, which I have found invaluable for basketball, solid for NFL. Now I play NFL slightly differently, so the ownership projections really don't get to me as much, but I know people are raving about them. But for basketball, they are uncannily accurate, and that has changed how I have been playing basketball for the better. And I'm looking forward to getting into this for baseball as well, Ben, because we kind of merged the Fanvice crew merged with Awesemo at the end of the baseball season, so I wasn't really into the ownership projections, but wow, they're pretty good. We also have player projections for all of the main sports, and then we have for NBA we have the Fast Eddie Fear rankings, both for cash games and for tournaments. And I know you guys know and love Eddie because you watch his shows most nights live before lock for the NBA tip-offs. And then, of course, hey, who doesn't want to get inside the mind of the #1 DFS ranked gamer in the world, Alex Baker, also known as Awesemo? But you get his player ratings for all of the main sports, rated for both production and for value. And the neat thing about hockey that I really like, because I don't do a lot of hockey, but with Jake Hari's projections and with our ownership and with Alex, with Awesemo's rankings, he ranks the lines, Ben. So it makes it very easy to put it in the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, make some teams muck around in the dollar and quarter tournaments, and have some fun, because you can't live on NBA alone, I've learned.
No, absolutely not. That's part of the great thing about the site is that there's a lot going on behind the paywall. A lot of different sports. I've been even doing some college basketball content, which you can find. Obviously, it's bowl season. We're going to have stuff for that. Just a fun time to be around. And just real quick, we did have a couple questions in chat. One, Buffalo they play a week from tomorrow, so I'm excited about that bowl game, but it isn't tomorrow. And South Dakota State, North Dakota State, yeah, that game's tonight. Gonna be interesting. That's not a bowl game. That's a different division. They're subdivision. But North Dakota State's a juggernaut. They get them in the Bison Dome. Gonna be tough. I know South Dakota State, I don't know much about them. They went down to Georgia, beat Kennesaw State in the rain last week. But it's hard to go against North Dakota State tonight. They're a juggernaut. They win it every year. It's incredibly impressive.
All right. We've got a little two-game NFL slate that I thought the sites were going to run Sunday through Monday, or pardon me, Saturday through Monday slates. They're not. So they're running this as a 2-game standalone. Of course, there'll be single game action for both sets of the games here. And that's a little tease as we head into the first 2 weekends of the NFL playoffs. That's what a lot of this stuff will look like. But we have our 4:30 Eastern time game. It's the Houston Texans heading in to take on the New York Jets. Ben is a huge Jets fan. My condolences. Sam Darnold, again, my condolences. But we've got a touchdown favorite, road favorite with the Texans here. 42.5 over under. Is there one side or the other that you're looking at with these with this touchdown spread? Because the Jets have actually been a little bit feisty. They do tend to play tougher at home, but what's going on with Crowell? Is Elijah McGuire going to be good to go? On the other side, we're assuming Hopkins is going to play. Tiny bit of playoff life left in some of the teams in both these games on Saturday. But looking at that first one, what is your read on the Houston and Jets from a wagering perspective?
Yeah, it's a game, at first glance, I think most people look at it and they just see, oh, Houston, easy game, going to come in and kill the Jets. Jets have been scrappy. They're at home. Houston's been, talk about a homestand. They played 3 straight at home. Now they go up to New York on a somewhat short week, and they're given a full touchdown on the road. I lean to the home team with the Jets. I know Crowell isn't playing, but, they still have McGuire, who, in my opinion, is more dynamic. I know he's not a typical, three down back, but I think the Jets can keep it close. Though, as we get, this is across the board, but we've seen now, cold weather, these games outside, the over-unders are going to continue to fall. This one's sitting shade over 40. I see 41.5. And that just makes it tougher to cover somewhat big spreads on the road. The Texans are a dome team. They've got dynamic playmakers. There's no doubt about that. Watson, Hopkins, Marius Thomas, even Lamar Miller's running it better. But Jets have been feisty. Not that it's an impressive win, but they did beat Buffalo last week. They fought and they should have beat Tennessee 2 weeks ago on the road. And I think they keep it close enough. So another game where it's, it feels somewhat trappy with the Texans. I'll take the home team. Give me a touchdown, and I think they can stay within it.
I think that's a reasonable take here. I think it's going to be, as you mentioned, it's a major shift from Houston going the multiple games at home and then on the road. It's not warm. And they're a team that is not nearly as dynamic as I would have thought. They were going to be. Deshaun Watson generally is not getting over 25 pass attempts per game. Their defense has been outstanding. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney, J.J. Watt, it's pretty awesome. Did you know J.J. Watt has 2 brothers that play in the NFL?
So I've heard, yeah.
There you go.
The Watt family's.
I knew DJ Watt was, but he has another brother who's a fullback. I forget where he plays, but randomly. So anyway, this game feels like one where the Jets could keep it close. Now we'll talk about the second game here, and then I'll do a quick little high level from what I've seen from a DFS perspective, and then we'll mention 1 or 2 of the Sunday games. Chad, if you have a particular Sunday game you want to get a take on from us, definitely put that in there. Reminder, we're doing 24 days of giveaways here at Awesemo because it is December. It is the time of giving. So if you want to, all you got to do is like this show and leave a comment. Leave a comment with your favorite all-time college football team. And when you do that, you're going to be eligible for the drawing today, where we will be giving away a prize, and you get to choose your choice if you are the winner of 1 month of any single sport package at Awesemo. So if you want to get NFL, you can do that. If you're a hockey fan, that's yours. If you want to do the NBA, you can get that. And if you're already an Awesemo subscriber, don't fear. We've got you covered. You get to pick any item out of the Awesemo.com merchandise store. That's right. We have swag. All you got to do, if you want to check that out, go to shop.awesemo.com. Don't put in the wwws. That messes it up. Go to shop.awesemo.com. The magic of internet web browsers will get you there. And there's some cool stuff here. Multiple hats, multiple hoodies. I called them jerseys, Ben. The T-ball shirts, the 3/4 length sleeve shirts. I was making the joke when I played T-ball, and Little League, we didn't have jerseys. So we had those shirts. But technically we were playing in wool uniforms. Ben, because it was that long ago. But anyway, a lot of cool stuff there to check that out. So, and if you're listening to this on YouTube, because I'm going to see, or on iTunes, because I'm going to see if I can upload it there, all you got to do is just rate and review in the iTunes, and you will be captured and put into the drawing. And you can leave comments on all of our shows. We're doing one drawing a day. At the end of the 24 days of giveaways, which will be December 24th, we are giving away to anybody who's participated in any of the comments on any of the shows will all be put in a drawing, so you can have multiple entries. But we are giving away one full premium Awesemo.com annual subscription. So, well worth it. All you got to do in this, just leave a comment with your favorite college football team. Mine is going to be the University of Washington 1991 season. Ben, it wasn't a co-championship with Miami.
Mm-hmm.
It was the UW all the way. What's your favorite all-time team?
Favorite all-time team? Probably, I know it seems ridiculous to think this. It wasn't that long ago. Probably the Auburn team, who's from the SEC, who went undefeated and just didn't make the championship game. Cadillac Williams, Ronnie Brown, amazing team.
Jason Campbell still on that team?
Jason Campbell, yep, great team. And they did not make it. But nowadays, we don't have to worry about that because we have the playoff.
All right, let's look at our second game here, and we'll give a quick rollout for the DFS implications. Let me get back to the page here. We've got Cleveland at Denver. Denver, this line has moved all over the place. It opened at -4. Now it's vacillating between -2.5 and -3. That would be Denver, the home team, being the favorites. Cleveland, they only won one game last year. They've quintupled that already, Ben, and are on a little bit of a tear. Do we need Hugh Jackson? We don't need no stinking Hugh Jackson. We're going to do this ourselves, baby. We're going to look within ourselves, and we're going to go out there and win. So when they have been doing, they are 5-7, which is pretty surprising. And then that one random tie, I believe that was the Steeler game where they kind of should have won. I thought, wasn't it the Steeler? They had like three overtimes in 4 weeks. So
that was week 1, I think.
Yeah,
right off the bat.
Yeah, so we've got them. We've got Denver at 6-7. So both these teams on the extreme outside looking in. The Broncos probably not going to make the second wild card spot because now we have Kansas City and the Chargers have both clinched at 11-3. Chargers upset on the last play of the game, 2-point conversion, they ran a 2-point conversion to break the tie. Or to win the game, in the fourth quarter after being down by 14 points. So the Chargers are in, and the Chiefs are in. Now, one of those guys will run the AFC West, and the other one will be the wild card 1. So then we have a whole mess of teams here at 7-6, 5-7. They're not quite out. The Broncos are at 6-7, so they're going to need a world of help, as are Cleveland. But I am liking the Browns in this one. We do know that Denver tends to play better at home, but I think Baker Mayfield really coming into his own. They've kind of unlocked Jarvis Landry somewhat here, and secret weapon, the forgotten weapon, Duke Johnson. We haven't heard from him in a few games, Ben, which means he's in there in his coach's ear saying, come on, coach, come on, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. And since it's the running back coach that's now calling the plays, I've got to think we see a little bit of Duke Johnson in this one. Your perspective, let's assume it's a Denver with the 3-point line. How are you going to come down on this one? Yeah,
this is one, I like the Broncos in this game, so I'm against you here. But I will say, this opened at -4. The Broncos are taking on, from what I can see, the majority of the money, and the spread is falling. So that's a potential reverse line movement situation. That's one of the articles that I wrote up, and we've done a video series. So if you're kind of unfamiliar with the implications of that, it's right on the Awesemo homepage. You should definitely check that out, because that's something, I certainly stopped and took notice of, because you would think, okay, Denver opened at -4, more money is going, more people are betting Denver, yet the spread is falling. So that means, looks like some people, sharp people, are on the Browns, causing that spread to kind of continuously fall here. I still, I do lean with the home team, but you alluded to it. Denver in the thin air, much better team. Browns 1-5 on the road. Baker, he's going to have some. I feel like I have a pretty good pulse on him, to be honest. 2 weeks ago against the Texans, I really thought he would struggle. That pass rush got to him, forced him into some bad throws. Last week, he looked great. Carolina, much different defense. He was good. Landry was good. They can lean on Chubb in the running game. This is another spot, though, where if they fall behind, I think that, Von Miller and the boys can get to him. So it'll be interesting to see if they can control that game with Chubb. I think that's what they want to do and what they should do. But if they are not successful on the ground, I think it could be a long day for Baker in that offense.
I'm leaning towards the under in this one, and that's why I think they're going to keep this close. And I'm willing to go and take the 3 points with Cleveland. Now, sort of what I'm looking at here that makes me think that is, I think Cleveland will as you mentioned, they're going to lean on Chubb a little bit more. Now, it's not going to be easy because the Broncos have the 11th ranked rushing defense according to Football Outsiders DVOA. So it's not going to be an easy row. It's not a row to hoe. And then the pass defense, yikes, Broncos are ranked second for DVOA. So I'm thinking a lot of ball control. I think the clock's really going to be moving in this one because frankly, it's not like the Broncos are that dynamic passing. They don't have Emmanuel Sanders. They've got Case Keenum. Woohoo, Case Keenum. We're popping corks everywhere for okay, no, we're not. But their running game is awesome with Philip Lindsay, and they've got their backups are coming in, spelling him, doing some nice work. So I think we're going to see more of a running game from both sides here, and I think the defenses are going to be up for the match. So as long as they keep them inside the sidelines, Ben, that clock's going to be moving. So that's my thought for the choosing the under here and keeping the Cleveland Browns close with those 3 points. Looking at just the 2-game slate here, because we want to get in some regular DFS, and then if anybody wants us to look at a particular Sunday game, we can talk about that. But we have 4 quarterbacks, of course, which means most people are probably, and I've just got DraftKings up, so we'll use their pricing, but most people are going to look to Deshaun Watson because he's the name. You also have Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum, and Sam Darnold. Yikes. I don't really want to pick anybody except Watson and maybe Mayfield, but I think we're going to see some defensive struggles on both these games, and I am looking at projections now. I would say Darnold is kind of the also-ran. Sorry, Ben. But anything can happen in these games, and it wouldn't shock me if kind of the median projection and outcome of these guys is all about 200 to 250 yards and 1.5 touchdowns. Okay, that feels about right from this crew. So while Watson could be the most exciting, what do you think? 60% ownership on a 2-game slate?
It's going to be a lot. Yeah. I mean, it's only 2 games, and Darnold, to me, it's not going to have much ownership at all. So you got 3 guys. Keenum's probably, the most aggressive I'll go. I mean, there's only 4 options anyway, but Deshaun Watson, even though both of these, Baker and Deshaun Watson, I think they both could struggle, but that does not preclude them from having big fantasy. Me and Andrew on From A to B talk about all the time. They're both in the bucket of guys that make a lot of mistakes and make a lot of spectacular plays within the same game. So I wouldn't be stunned to see some turnovers from them. And at the same time, they can use their legs. They can make some big plays. 2-game slate, I'll probably try to differentiate elsewhere besides quarterback.
Yeah, Watson went from week 5 to week 12 without topping 25 pass attempts. Now, in the last 2 games, he's got 31, and then last week against Indianapolis, he's got 38. But here's his 5 most recent DraftKings totals. 18 points, 16 points, 29 points, 11 points, 20 points. None of those numbers, except for maybe that 29, don't. I would put Darnold able to approach 20 fantasy points, and this is one of those where what are we going to do with the ownership here? So just food for thought there. When we look at running backs, Nick Chubb and Philip Lindsay will be the most popular. They're also the most expensive. But then I think a lot of people are going to be on Elijah McGuire. He is very discounted at $4,000. That's probably the guy I want to look to as well. The guy I'm not interested in, Lamar Miller. I think Lamar Miller is kind of a fluky play, especially against these tougher running defenses. And if he hadn't broken off a couple of his big plays, he would be having an incredibly pedestrian year. And frankly, Alfred Blue is doing about the same efficiency-wise when he's getting his opportunities as Miller is. So Lindsey and Chubb will probably fill one, and I'll probably go somewhat chalky with McGuire there, with Duke Johnson as a differentiation play. What do you like for running back?
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. Obviously, Elijah McGuire is going to have a lot of volatility. He can catch passes. He's explosive. I don't know how much work he's even going to see volume wise. He's not an every down back, but they're going to have to use him certainly. And I'm with you, Lamar Miller. Alfred Blue is taking some reasonable timeshare. We'll see if Foreman is active. He wasn't last week, and it's not a great spot. He's got to have to get involved in the passing game to really boost that floor. If not, if he doesn't find the end zone, you're in huge trouble. So, depending what you got to do on a 2-game slate, you don't need to make 6 different stands. You just need to make one if it's radical enough to be a little different. So on teams, if I maybe change it up at quarterback, that's where I'd go for the more, obvious Nick Chubb, maybe Lindsey types. And then if, I use Deshaun or Baker, that's maybe where I'll try a different combination of running backs and try to get away from the masses.
Yep, and that makes a lot of sense. A handful of lineups with particular focused zigs against what the field is doing, and just kick back and enjoy. You can also look to player props and some of that other fun stuff to have a little action in this one. Looking at the wide receivers, my dog says, hey, we're going to look at the wide receivers quickly because we now FedEx truck is here, Ben. What is my wife doing? Yeah, I can't wait to look at the credit card statement. This
packages
is
on packages, yeah.
Oh,
there
boy.
You go.
Well, unless it's a neighbor drop off. But back to this, Jarvis Landry, I really like. I'm going to let other people take Cortland Sutton. I don't feel that it's chasing points to go to Deshaun Hamilton for Denver. I feel it's chasing points to go to Tim Patrick, but we've got to play 3 wide receivers, and we have a flex, and it's a limited player pool. So those guys will be in the mix for me. Robbie Anderson, hit or miss. You know what? He hit last week. 7 targets, 4 catches, 76 yards, but wait for it, 37-yard touchdown. That's important. He had not scored since he had 2 touchdowns back in week 5. He did score in week 9 as well. Nope, that was week 5. That was a rushing attempt there in week 9. So he's not done what he's done the last 2 years where we're like, yeah, Robbie Anderson. Did we not say he was incredibly efficient? Did we not say there would be regression to the mean? We were not alone in this.
Yep.
But Ben, perhaps people have forgotten he does possess some upside. And at 4,200, he slots in nicely as a wide receiver 3 or a flex option. Yeah,
he's always, a boom bust. I remember that game in week 5, I believe it was against the Broncos, and that shows the ceiling that he's got. Floor's god awful. And with that offense, you never know. It's going to be tricky with Sutton in particular. He was awful last week. He also got hurt in that game. And that really shifted. It was a weird set of circumstances in a couple ways. They were down and they had to play catch up, and that caused that to really start abandoning a balanced offense. So they were throwing the ball over the place. I don't see that this week, which is, I don't think you do either. You alluded to liking the under, maybe a stab here and there. And then on the other side, no Chris Harris. That's going to help the Browns receivers for sure. So there's some reasonable options for a 2-game slate.
All right. Tight ends, I think a lot of the people are going to go to David Njoku. He's 3,800. Everybody else is 3,000 or less. I really don't care who my tight end is because we're touchdown hunting at this point. And Njoku has not had the best games. I think we're going to see more running, or Jarvis Landry. So not really excited by him, but all it takes, if you get 3 catches for 20 yards and a touchdown, he could be the number 1 scoring tight end. You've got 3 different guys that you can look at here for Houston. You've got Jordan Thomas, you've got Ryan Griffin, and then of course you have the somewhat versatile Jordan Akins. He kind of can line up anywhere depending on what's going on with Kiki Kute. He could sort of step into the slot as needed, where we know that Kute has been dealing with a hamstring injury and has been a little bit hit or miss. So nobody really exciting there. Matt Lacoste, everybody was fired up to get him a couple weeks ago, and then he's had 2 targets over his last 2 games with 1 catch for 3 yards. 3 games ago, Ben, he had a nice game, but he only had 4 targets in that game. He got a touchdown, which made his day. and he got 34 yards on 3 receptions. So that's just kind of showing the upside of these guys. Probably 11 to 13 points tops. One of them is going to get there. I don't know which of those half dozen is going to get there, or throw in Chris Herndon into the mix as well. Does any of these guys stand out at all to you?
Not really. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough. You're going to want to mix and match if you're playing multiple teams. The volume isn't secure for any of them, and it's only 2 games, so it's very limited options on the DFS side. I haven't dug in too much, but nothing stood out initially with tight ends, a very weak position.
All right, we're gonna pick two gambling games here, wagering games, shall we say, to look at for Sunday. But I want to remind everybody, Yahoo is running the most phenomenal tournament of all time for Week 15. It is the $1 Million Baller. It is a $1 million prize pool. It's $20 per ticket, little spendy, but wait till you hear this. There's only 37,500 entries. Oh, doing some quick math, that means they're only going to be bringing in $750,000 and they're giving away $1 million. Yeah, that's right. Built-in 33% overlay. They are looking to acquire customers, so let's help them out. If you sign up with the promo code Awesemo and you have not yet made a DFS deposit, you can already have an account with Yahoo because, of course, all of us have played Yahoo Fantasy at some point. But if you have not yet made a DFS deposit, when you make your deposit, you use the promo code Awesemo. Up to your first $30 of your deposit, they will match in free play. So how they're going to do that is they're going to give away Yahoo Fantasy points. Those are good to use in any tournament right away. So if you sign up, do a $30 deposit, use your promo code Awesemo, immediately you'll get your $30 plus their $30 worth of points. That's 3 entries into this contest. Wait for it. You're all worried about the mass multi-entry, guys? Don't worry about that at Yahoo. 10 entry max. So running some math, I think we're going to see at least, I think it'll fill up to 30,000 people. That is leaving 7,500 out there. That's about $150,000, Ben. I think we're going to see almost the equivalent of only a 60% full dollar-wise contest. That is some phenomenal built-in value. Now, you're still going to have to cash your lineups, but you're going to be competing against about 60% of the people for a value of 100% of the price. And that's something that no tout site is better than. The only thing that would be better than that, Ben, is having the box scores before the games start.
Yeah, no, it truly is. I mean, I don't do enough of that. I think a lot of people, it's like, but even I went over to Yahoo this morning and I'll be in there because it's just too good to pass up. It's like you said, if it overlays on top of the overlay, you're not going to get a better spot on that, in a vacuum the entire year. So if you're looking to kind of boost that bankroll or just even take a shot, you're not going to find a better tournament. The equity on your money is right off the bat, it's almost double, like if it really overlays. So
yeah,
not bad.
Not bad at all. Again, that's promo code Awesemo when you're making your first deposit. That match extends up to the first $30. So if you put in $200 so you can max out that contest, they'll just give you still $30 of immediate use fantasy points. And the great thing about theirs, like at DraftKings, you got to go cash in the ticket and all this extra crap. On Yahoo, you just pick. You say, do I want to enter with cash or do I want to enter with fantasy points? Boom. There you go. There's also no automated upload. So everything's hand built. So you can use optimizers to set up your lineups and such, but you got to put them in by hand. So that also kind of limits what a lot of people are doing. Plus, they're somewhat funky price points, get people confused. So to help everybody out, there's a free article on the Awesemo.com homepage written by yours truly that is focusing on those tertiary plays that will make the tournaments lineup construction more helpful. You already know who you want to stack. You already know who the top running backs, quarterbacks, etc. are. This is looking at what I think are some undervalued plays. There's a couple quarterbacks. I think they put 3 running backs in there, 3 or 4 receivers, a couple tight ends, and a defense. And then we broke down everything against Awesemo's grades. So against Alex Baker's grades that he has been just launched for this tournament for Yahoo, that I described what my picks were and then how they balance against his grading system. So what you'll want to do, I think it's worthwhile looking at that, whether you're a subscriber or not. It does give you some nice insight on how to use some of our technology and information that we are providing. Okay, Ben, this one's going to be selfish. So my pick is, and I want to hear from you because I know what I'm picking, Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers. Now the Seahawks are, I think they're about a touchdown favorite. I'll confirm that. How do you see this game shaping up? Because from a DFS perspective, I think looking to Jeff Wilson is pretty solid, and I think Dante Pettis, assuming he's healthy, is pretty intriguing. But I think this is just going to be a Seattle game. Seattle is 4-point favorites on the road. These two teams just played 2 weeks ago. Seattle coming off a nice win Monday night against Minnesota, but their offense was disappointing. Here's another game where I like the under at 44.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Again, at first glance, you just see Seattle crush them. Seattle's rolling, and it's like, oh, but the spread had opened at 5.5. I've seen it as low as 3.5, and Seattle's taking on majority of the tickets, so that's a red flag right off the bat for me. And the Niners are much better at home. Seattle's much worse on the road, like a lot of teams. So it's going to be a matter of, the way Seattle's been playing. We all saw it against the Vikings. It's been ugly. They want to control the clock. Russell Wilson, he needs to be better than that. That is not what they want him to be doing, obviously. But they have found something with Carson, with Penny, with Mike Davis. I'll lean with the home team, though. Give me the 3 or 4. It's a good number that could come into play easily. I expect a close game. And Seattle, they're not above that. I think this is a different situation than when we saw Mullins go up to Seattle. That game got away from them. The Niners have, they've been playing better. And like I said, at home is a totally different animal. They're 3-10, but they're 3-3 at home. They're 0-7 on the road. They've done absolutely nothing away from San Francisco. And the way this spread is dropping, I think some of the sharp money's coming in on the Niners this week.
All right. Last game, Ben, that we're going to talk about Sunday night. Now we have the Philadelphia Eagles going to Los Angeles. We last saw the Rams last Sunday night, of all things, losing in Chicago. A little bit chilly there. Not a lot of offense. Trick plays were involved, but they are 11-2 here. So we have an intriguing game. Now, normally you would say, oh no, Philadelphia without Carson Wentz somehow had fractured vertebrae that was not diagnosed for a couple weeks, but he is out. Is it a quarterback change? Is it really an injury? I don't know, but they're on their backup quarterback, Ben. We should just be going all in on the Rams, right? But wait, Nick Foles, that name sounds familiar. Oh yeah, he was the 2018 Super Bowl MVP. How can you go to your backup quarterback and have him be the reigning Super Bowl MVP? I don't know. I do think he may be a little rusty. That's my only concern with Foles, is he has not really played since week 2. But what are you looking at from this game? Because that's a monkey wrench. It's like, oh, they're on the backup. But wait, we've got the Rams coming off a crappy loss. We've got the Super Bowl MVP is now going to be involved in this game. I don't have a read on this one.
Yeah, it's a tough game to bet, to be honest. It opened 9.5. The money's coming in on the Rams. They've moved across the key number of 10, soared past 11. They're at 12, 12.5. And I get like it that, Wentz isn't playing probably, and it's a bad spot for the Eagles. I think last week was kind of it for them. I want to say they should have won that game, but at the same time, they really had chances to win that game. Obviously, losing in overtime the way they did was crushing. I'm not sure where they're really at. Technically, they're still alive, but this is a tough spot. Rams get right game. They played bad in Chicago. Now they come home. I just have a feeling McVay, Goff, really exploits that secondary from the Eagles. Maybe they can limit it, but if it gets going, it's going to be tough. And I know they have the good pass rush with Fletcher Cox in the middle, but I honestly would lay the points. I think this one gets away from the Eagles on the road.
Okay. It feels like a high number, but I can't put a read on it. The Rams defense getting more healthy, especially in the secondary, which is a little bit helpful, but tough one. And we had a little, I got to give a little shout out here. Reminded me of Nick Foles' revenge here from Scott F. Of course, he had that little season between his Philadelphia stints. with the Rams. He played for another team, and I can't remember. It wasn't the
He
Rams.
was bouncing around. I mean,
but that's funny.
Tough.
Between him and Wentz and Goff and all these, there's like a million storylines tying all these guys together with those random trades. So, there's one common thread. They all got away from Jeff Fisher.
That's right. That is the common thread. No argument there.
Corey Bradford, Sam Bradford. It's wild. It's wild. All right, well, we're going to get on out of here. Reminder, in the comment section, put in your favorite all-time college football team. Mine is the University of Washington, 1991 Rose Bowl champions. They were not co-champions, in my opinion, with the Miami Hurricanes that year. They were the true winners. Forget about the tie. There is no ties, Ben. They were the true winners. But put that in the comment section if you're on iTunes. Put that in the rate us and review us. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, because we're just putting out more and more content all the time here, and you're going to want to keep aware and get little notifications when new stuff comes up. You can catch Ben here on the A to B show, which will be later this afternoon. He will be joined by Andrew Barron. You may know him better as Hot Magic. He is also the mind behind all of the player projections here, except for hockey. But he does PGA, NBA, baseball, and NFL, and he is very, very good DFS player himself. You got that show this afternoon after lunch, and then you've got the deeper dive with Laffy and Adam. That will be kicking off at around 5 o'clock. It might be a little bit earlier because it is a 9-game slate, so that's why you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel to get those notifications. And then you have Live Before Lock with Fast Eddie Fear and Chris Spags taking you down the home stretch. Saturday, you get the NBA Strategy Show with me and Adam. That'll go off around 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. You will then get On the Contrary with Evan Silva, with Awesemo, Alex Baker himself, and Chris Spags. They will be talking their contrary plays as we head into the tournament. So you're going to want to hear about their Yahoo thoughts, because that's a big tournament and only 10 lineups per people. So remember to sign up over at Yahoo. Promo code Awesemo gets you $30 matched to your first $30 of your deposit. And then of course NBA all weekend, and then Sunday Ben's coming back again. You're doing yeoman's work here. You've got Ben and Laffy at 11 for NFL, and then you have Chris Spags and special guest Sunday taking you up to lock. Can you guess who the special guest is?
We'll have to wait and see, but I have a feeling I might be talking to him.
We'll have to wait and see, but you probably are talking to him. Yes, Josh is on vacay. He is with, we're giving him a break because, he only works 6.5 days a week. So we thought we'd give him a whole weekend off, but he's going to be up there caddying for Awesemo at the FanDuel Live Finals. I believe that's in New York. So there you go. Nice. All right. With that, gamers, we are going to get on out of here. Good luck.